My goodness, there is so much going on with the New York Yankees. I texted this guy on like Friday. I said, listen, if you got 20 minutes on Sunday, I need you. And little did I know, Stanton news, Weathers news, another series win. So as I welcome in Emmanuel Berbari of the Yankee Radio Network, and I welcome in the Emmanuel Berbari that you see in the sharp dress suits now on the S Network. Just another blasé normal weekend, right?
Just another normal weekend in this wacky season, really, when you consider all that's gone on, the ups and the downs, and guys come back, but then guys get hurt. It's really been the story of the season. Yankees are right where they need to be. They're 3 back with 32 to play, or for in a first place. Tampa, of course, are the top wild card team. And importantly, you take the season series from Toronto, a far cry from last year. And today was a real feel-good day because you show up to the ballpark, we're wondering, is Ryan Weathers not only out for the year, but is he out for the next, 15, 18 months? Are you thinking about that? Are you thinking worst case scenario? And what we learn is it's the lowest grade possible for Ryan Weathers with the flexor strain. So I envision a world where this is a blow for Ryan Weathers. He'll start throwing in about a couple weeks, and he'll be a part of the Yankee bullpen come October. Best case scenario there. The Giancarlo Stanton news is not ideal. I'm not saying anybody was shocked to hear it, but it was not ideal. But the Yankees continue to find a way, and today was a complete win for this team.
Yeah, let's start with the positives here. I think it's a huge deal taking a series from Toronto, winning the season series from Toronto, and the idea, Emmanuel, that they're finding different ways to win, not just the 2-1 variety, not just the 3-2 variety. You get some offensive outputs in Baltimore to end that series. You go and score a bunch of runs in Sunday's game. I know the big fella's not back yet. I know it's Bellinger's first game back. But is it refreshing in a way to finally see the Yankees win a game that's not like by the hairs of their chinny chin chin, that's like 2-1 and as stressful as possible?
Well, these games have been intense and stressful, and the starting pitchers have all said the right thing. But it's really hard to pitch in games like that when you're not up early. Yankees now, it's up to 22 games in a row without a run in the first inning. When's the last time we looked up? I think it was against the White Sox we looked up, and the Yankees had a first inning lead where the starting pitcher can settle in a bit. He has a little bit of run support to begin the day. That hasn't been the case. These games have been very stressful for the most part. Today, even though it was tight, like you had to go out and earn this one, it wasn't of that 1-0, 2-1. Is the offense going to get anything variety? From the second inning, bam, you see George Lombard spark another rally and Spencer Jones stay red hot. And what a story he's been down the stretch of this season. And then late, what I love is you're finding different ways. Jazz lays down a perfect bunt to load the bases. And then you have go bases loaded, nobody out, to bases loaded, 2 out. We're all thinking, is this an opportunity wasted? But Grisham and Rice, those at-bats were phenomenal. Bases loaded walk in a 2-run single. Even Jazz earlier in the game, a 2-strike move the runner from second to third.
What a concept, by
ahead
the
of
way.
Wells.
Where
that
has
was
that been?
Beautiful.
Wells, can we give Wells some credit here? Because, listen, I was one of the people yelling and screaming they needed a catcher, and I don't regret that. I still believe that they dropped the ball by not adding a catcher. But it seems like, Emmanuel, since the deadline, Austin Wells has been more productive. I'm not saying that he's been an elite, top-notch catcher, but if you're getting 770, 780, 790 OPS, that is a monstrous, monstrous upgrade out of the position, is it not?
And considering what he does defensively, we're not even asking for 770, 780, but what he's doing, his first 60 or so games, he was in the 400s in terms of OPS, and now he's right around 800 since then. And that's an Austin Wells who you don't just live with, you love to have, because you look at what he does defensively, you look at the level of trust that this pitching staff all places in him, you look at the game that he helps call or calls himself. He is a tremendous asset to this team when he's hitting the way he's been hitting. And you just notice the at-bats have been better. Whether it's a day he's 0 for 3 or a day like today where he smokes a ball for an RBI double, the at-bats are so much better. You look at just the position he's in to hit, he looks so much more comfortable. And I was talking to Wells about it and asking him if there was a tangible change. And he said he didn't realize until now maybe how much those cervical headaches and taking that shot in the head, how much it hurt him. And that's not like using it as an excuse. He just realizes now how much better he's seeing the ball, how much of a struggle it was early in the season. So if those are a thing of the past and you have a dangerous Austin Wells at the bottom of your order, it just changes the feel of this team.
So I have to take an L on this, Emmanuel, because we've had this discussion quite a bit in text, and we've had this discussion for the listeners to hear on the air. When you looked at Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez, I was of the mindset Jason Dominguez would be able to help this team more. I didn't know if Jones' offensive profile would fit with a team that has a lot of swing and miss to begin with. And my feeling was, hey, I want Dominguez to go and get that opportunity with Judge not being there. Well, he was handed the opportunity. He didn't really make anything of it. Spencer Jones, on the other hand, has been shutting me up quite a bit over the last few weeks. The at-bats have been really good. You know the defense is going to be there. He's hitting the clutch. Is he looking like a guy that's just getting more and more and more comfortable at the big league level? Because, like, I have been of the belief, like, yeah, I know Cody Bellinger's coming back, but, like, I still want him to play. I still think there's a role for him on this team. You keep playing like this on both sides of the ball, Yankees are going to have no choice. They're going to have to find a way to get you back in the lineup.
I think the Yankees agree with you. I think they want him to play and have a big-time role on this team. And he's gotten more comfortable every single time he's gone down and come back up. And now within a stint in the big leagues, now he's had this extended stretch, he continues to make adjustments and look more comfortable. And he's fit in seamlessly to the clubhouse. He's a guy who's loved in there. He plays outstanding defense, is always an area of the game where you live with some of the swing and miss because you know the prodigious power is there and you know that the defense is outstanding. He can steal bases. What is he, 8 for 8 stealing bases? So this is a true athlete and a unique one at that, given he's a behemoth. And I think he's a future, possible star for the Yankees. But right now, you hear the word or phrase unfinished product a lot with Spencer Jones. And it's true. But right now, the unfinished product is more than good enough to play productive, to really above average baseball at the big league level and be a meaningful part of this team. And I keep in mind, in an ideal world, Judge comes back and plays right field. But Judge will need some DH when he comes back. I think inevitably he will. So there's a role for Spencer Jones on this team, even with quote unquote everybody healthy.
And this is where we go to the injury news. And I said this yesterday, Emmanuel, doing TV. I know it sounds crazy. Some people are like, oh, JJ, it's not crazy at all. I think it's crazy considering the pedigree of each of these players and considering what Giancarlo Stanton is from a playoff standpoint. I thought the news on Saturday involving Weathers was way more significant because of the fact that he's been so good. He's bolstered this pitching staff. You're fearing the worst with Tommy John. You kind of hit on it. Doesn't seem to be the case. Looks like the UCL is good. The Yankees got to be counting their lucky stars that Ryan Weathers could at some point now help this Yankee group. But my question is, Emmanuel, what does the rotation look like for these games that mean a lot for this team right now? Great. 3-4 weeks from now, Ryan Weathers is in the bullpen. Okay, he could definitely help you out there. But if you want to catch Tampa Bay, if you want to go and have the best record in the American League, every fifth day, I need a starting pitcher. I know Fried's close, but until then, what's the plan here for the Yankees in a rotation?
I'm glad you mentioned Fried because that's a big element here. That Fried, who similarly we thought we were going to have terrible news on, and it wasn't the case. And he thinks minimum 15 days and he'll be back. Fried threw a really successful side yesterday. He bounced back well. So Fried's on track for, if not those 15 days, maybe 16 or 17 days.
Now, we won't see him for this Red Sox series, right? That's still a little too soon?
I think that would be too, barring a surprise, I think that would be too soon. But we'll see him soon. And I think in the meantime, Yankees patch it together with, okay, you have Elmer Rodriguez, who's pitched really well at AAA. He might make some meaningful starts here. I also think they're going to be ultra aggressive, where an Elmer start doesn't mean you're handing him the ball and looking for him to get in the 6th inning or the 7th inning. If he pitches well, maybe. But I think they could get pretty aggressive here with how they use this bullpen. And I understand that may not sound pretty given how much they've used this bullpen, but maybe you piggyback. Maybe we see more of a Yarbrough and he's been really valuable in those 3-inning, 2-inning bursts for this team. The Yankees will take an opportunity to get creative, but I do think Elmer's the guy they think the world of long term, and they would love the opportunity to give him some meaningful starts here down the stretch. Once Fried's back, I think the rotation's in a much more stabilized spot, even without Ryan Weathers. But it's also on a guy like Will Warren to step up. And I have the utmost respect for Will Warren, given how he posts every fifth day. And for the most part, he's what you want in the back end of the rotation starter. But admittedly, he has not pitched his best baseball over the last couple months here. If you can get a nice stretch of 4 or 5 starts out of Will Warren, that just changes the rotation.
All right. Explain to me the Stanton situation. How does it? I know he's been hurt his entire career. He hurts the calf in late April, early May. Everyone is of the mindset, oh, this will be a couple weeks and then he's back. Then he re-injures the calf. Then you don't see him for forever. Oh, he's getting close. Oh, he's running the bases. Then he hurts the other calf. I mean, come on, Emmanuel. How does, for a guy built like Giancarlo Stanton, who doesn't have an ounce of fat on his body, how does this continue to keep happening?
I think his body has failed him. And you look at what Stanton was able to accomplish these last few years, particularly in the postseason. I look back to 2024. Look at the second half of last year where he played at a level I've never seen him play at as a Yankee. That includes...
It was unbelievable regular season play. Absolutely.
I mean, 24 homers, 66 RBIs in 77 games. That's like MVP Marlon Stanton, what he did last year. It makes you appreciate what he got out of his body when he was on the field, because this guy has been going on for some time. And clearly with the progression of this year and not being able to put together, 2-3 good weeks where you don't have a setback, that's how far this has fallen. And I just think his body has failed him. And if he could physically be on the field, there's no one who, outside of maybe a couple of the other leaders in that clubhouse, but Stanton may be the fiercest. There's no one who wants to be out there and winning more than Stanton contributing to winning. He'd be out there. And if he physically could, he would will himself on that field, even if it was on a part-time basis. But clearly it's just not the case right now.
Yeah, and I have to be of the mindset, Emmanuel, he's done for the year. Like, I'm at a point now, if I see him in a Yankee uniform at some point in October, it's a pleasant surprise. But, like, if I'm making plans, I'm not planning on having his bat in the lineup.
And by the way, what the Yankees told us in bringing in Luis Garcia Jr. at the trade deadline is they weren't banking on it. That's how I read this situation. And they, of course, didn't expect him to strain the other calf at that point, but they weren't banking on anything. And that's the way you approach a deadline. You go out and get a Garcia. It's a really dangerous bat, having a career year, already solid early returns as a Yankee. And the swing for this ballpark, you're seeing flashes of what that can be. And the Yankees modeled this roster where in a non-Stanton world, it's actually very flexible. Judge may need some DH time, but in an ideal world, he's playing right field. Rice is DHing every day, and Garcia and Goldschmidt is your platoon at first, which when you look statistically, Garcia against righties and Goldschmidt against lefties, that's the best first base platoon you can assemble in the sport. So that's the way the Yankees put this together, and they have options off the bench. They have some flexibility, but you cannot bank on. The Yankees will leave the door open until it's absolutely shut, but you can't bank on Stanton this year.
Your gut, Emmanuel. Has Giancarlo Stanton played his last game as a Yankee?
Unfortunately, I think he has, because we're facing a possible lockout next year. Who knows what will happen with the season? I'm not going to make any determinations or predictions on that. But you're dealing with a guy whose body has failed him, and everybody has the utmost respect for Giancarlo Stanton in that room. But given how this has fallen, given how he desperately tried to will himself back onto the field this year, didn't work out, and now the state of the roster and what's going to be an aging Aaron Judge, who you want to keep on the field, and Ben Rice, who has grown leaps and bounds over at first base, but he's a DH. I think in the best case scenario, he is a 75% DH, 25% first baseman for this team. And no, you're not jeopardizing Ben Rice in the future as a catcher. He's just too good of an offensive player. And in my mind, he's spent too much time away from the position now. So given the state of this roster, I'm a math guy. The odds to me just scream that Giancarlo Stanton's played his last game here.
The Stanton legacy is interesting because, listen, you hit on 2024. He's the LCS MVP. He had monstrous hits and home runs in every single one of those series. The Royals series, Game 5 against Cleveland, the World Series, even though it was a losing effort for the Yankees. Game 1, he hits a home run. Game 5, he hits a home run. And then his playoff success is well documented. What's also well documented is the Yankees did not make a move, and it was the talk. They passed on Bryce Harper. They passed on Manny Machado because they got Stanton. And a big part of the calculus here, Emmanuel, is that he did not play. So, like, historically speaking, I I have a really hard time putting Stanton's legacy as a Yankee in perspective because it's like, it's not like he was a bad player. He was a really, really good player who had moments of brilliance when the games mattered the most, which is what Yankee fans really admire, respect, and want to see come October. At the same time, they want to see him on the field a heck of a lot more. So that's why, like that, when we have this conversation about Giancarlo Stanton for the Hall of Fame, we have this conversation, Giancarlo Stanton, what's his Yankee like legacy? Dude, it's a complicated one, man.
Yeah, he's definitely a borderline Hall of Famer. I think the Yankee legacy is such a fascinating, complex situation with so many different angles. Let's start by dismissing any of these morons who want to say, oh, this is one of the worst contracts or worst acquisitions in history.
Absurd.
Stop it.
You're
Stop
the Yankees. You care about October. He performs in October. How can you say that?
Bad contracts and nothing contracts that gave you nothing do not include the October moments that Giancarlo Stanton gave you. They give you nothing. They don't give you something or that much of value. So Giancarlo Stanton, it's a complex legacy, but it's not one that's a flop in any way, shape, or form. I try not to associate him too much. The person and the player Stanton, I try to separate that from what the Yankees didn't do, because all he could do was come in here and be a stand-up guy and try to perform in New York. And then the rest of the stuff is aside. And I think the Yankees easily could have won with Giancarlo Stanton had a few things gone a different way. They still might win, just not with him on the field. I think you look at the pitching. Like if they had this year's pitching on some of those teams in 18 and 19, they probably win those World Series. So there are other moves maybe that could have put them over the top that weren't part of the equation then. And I think that has less to do with Stanton and the offense and more to do with other areas. You can break this down a million different ways, but I think it's a very complex legacy. But we should appreciate him for October and appreciate him for never making waves and never saying the wrong thing. This guy was as stand-up New York player as we've had.
And my gut is that his legacy with the team and that big home run against Cleveland and the 2020 postseason, it's what people are going to remember the most. And you hit on something super important. We want to see guys that come here that get it, that are accountable. Anytime he'd go through a rut, anytime he'd be in a slump, anytime he wasn't on the field, he'd be the first to tell you, I got to be out there. I got to play. They're counting on me. Like being able to handle the magnitude of playing here, he's done it really as well as anybody over the last decade. He has.
Right. And remember that first postseason in 18 against the Red Sox.
Not good.
He did not perform. And I think there were fair questions about, is this guy cut out for New York and big moments? And he quickly turned those aside, very quickly, and turned into one of the clutchest players of all time. When you just look at numbers in October, yeah, he doesn't have the championship to back it up. But let's say the Yankees went out there and won this year without him. Giancarlo Stanton, we're going to be very fond about, wow, he was part of the journey to this moment. Unfortunately, he wasn't a part of contributing to this October run, but now he has his deserved ring. Giancarlo Stanton deserves a ring. So I think that's a different way to think about it, where our appreciation should go hand in hand with this guy should have a ring on his finger, and he should have a championship.
Speaking of a guy that deserves a ring, number 99, the consensus right after Labor Day, is that reasonable?
I think that's reasonable. And initially, that was my target for the trio. Like I was looking at, hopefully Bellinger, Judge, and Stanton would all be back in that range. Stanton was close to being back and strains the other calf. Judge, I look at that Colorado series and I start thinking when the Yankees return from the West Coast, that's enough time where Judge can ramp up baseball activity. Judge has already started to hit. Now he needs to start hitting consistently against high speed. Then you got to get him into some rehab games. Remember, this guy hasn't been playing baseball in a while, so we got to be talking about a handful of rehab games and not just one or two. And I think as a DH, my most ambitious target is that September 8th range against Colorado, maybe a little bit later. But I think the Yankees' ultimate plan is to have him playing right field as well. So they're not going to rush this in any way, shape, or form.
Well, and one of the huge storylines of this team, Emmanuel, that cannot get overlooked. I'm so glad that you brought up these bullpen guys. With the amount of close games the Yankees have played, they have needed their bullpen to be as primo as possible. Bednar literally turned it. I loved him last year. He got off to a rocky start, blew that Met game, and I'll never forget the next day against Toronto, he's walking guys, the top of their orders coming up. I think it was like Springer and Guerrero. He got out of it. And from that point forward, he has been as good as any closer in the sport between Bednar, Blackburn, Hedrick, who's been up and down, but more good than bad. Hill has even had some moments in big spots. Yarborough, this Yankee team would not be in a position to go and have a chance for the AL East. The pitching and the rotation, we knew that was going to be really good. This bullpen, though, has met the mark and then some.
Yeah, his bullpen has been special. And remember the middle of May, you were talking about some of the concerns with Bednar that have all been dismissed by now. And we were wondering, oh, who do the Yankees have to add? How are they going to remake this bullpen? How are they going to turn it upside down? And it's been ERA-wise the best bullpen in baseball, and it's been the best bullpen over the last couple months where it's really mattered. You know, the Yankees, I counted it up. They had the first 2 games this weekend where they won a game and lost a game, having fewer than 6 hits. And they've had now 56 games this year with 6 hits or fewer. That's almost mind-boggling. 56 games with 6 hits or fewer, but they've won 23 out of those 56 games. You don't win games with 6 hits or fewer. The Yankees do it because they're in every game with the starting pitching, and the bullpen has eked out a lot of these victories. And Paul Blackburn has just been a complete revelation.
It's like Weaver a couple of years ago. Failed starter,
my goodness,
out of nowhere. Even last year, they brought him up. He was pitching mop-up duty. You know, like he was their mop-up guy. Now, not so much. Now he's like the 8th inning guy.
And I don't want to speak too soon. It feels to me like a Dream Weaver type of ascent where this guy comes out of literal nowhere when we're talking about expectations to be a circle of trust type of reliever. And now over his last 40 innings, he's allowed 3 runs. Like, that's a 0.6 ERA. Somebody tweeted me tongue-in-cheek, like, Paul Blackburn becoming Mariano was not on my bingo card for the second half. And it's funny, like Blackburn has become not just a part of your core in that bullpen, but a guy, and a guy that's feared across the league. And now Hedrick, I think there's no question about it. He's been a top 5 reliever in the sport this year. And Bednar's been a top 5 closer. You know, there's no debating it. He just picked up his 30th save. He's been nails. And we always knew, even when he struggled, he had the gut for New York. Like, it wasn't too big for him. And that's something you'll need come October.
Matt Blake is as good as it gets. I mean, that to me is the Matt Blake effect. You've seen it with Hedrick. You've seen it with Blackburn. You see it in the rotation with Ryan Weathers. Yankees should count their lucky stars. They have him running their pitching department because he is absolutely stupendous. Red Sox next weekend. I don't think this is exaggeration, right? Biggest series of the year. Like, the division is there to be had. They're 3 games out of first place. But Boston goes and has a big weekend here and takes 3 out of 4. Then you're sweating them, and I know the Yankees would want no part of playing a wild card series at Fenway Park. I know John Jastremski wants no part of seeing the Yankees in Fenway Park for a 3-game best-of-3 series. I have to anticipate the juices, E-Man, are going to be flowing next weekend, and it's got to be the biggest series they've played this year.
Definitely the biggest series to this point, and then eventually there will be another biggest series when they see Tampa Bay at the stadium. But I look at the Red Sox, and that's a team that's a force to be reckoned with. We mentioned repeatedly the 32 out of 37 and the 27 out of 30. They've cooled off from that considerably. Inevitably so. You don't do that. In baseball, the pendulum's going to swing back just a little bit, but that's a team that can pitch. That's a team that's known how to neutralize this Yankee lineup, even a Yankee lineup that's been a little bit more at full strength at times, and the Red Sox have carved them up. And I think you're at home. You're trying to protect Yankee Stadium against the Red Sox. It's a rematch of the wild card series from last year. Could be a wild card series again this year. And you want, in September, not that you could completely bury them because they're still going to be in that picture, but you want to not sweat Boston. You want to set your sights completely on Tampa and have that be the weekend against Boston where you say, look, you're the second wild card. You're the second wild card. And now the sights are on making up. Now it's 3 games of 32 to play. Hopefully by the end of the weekend, you're right on Tampa's heels and you're saying goodbye to Boston for a while.
And I think in order to do that, you got to go and win 3 out of 4 games. That said, with where the Yankees are at in the standings, a split I think would be fine.
Right.
The only thing to keep in mind, you know this, Red Sox win the season series, if they split, which means they finish with the same record. We saw this with the Blue Jays last year. You're out of luck when it comes to that home field advantage. So in a perfect world, you want 3 out of 4.
Right. You want a series victory. You want a nice, clear and convincing 3 out of 4. And also to be said for the Rays matchup coming up at the stadium, those 4 games, that also includes, like the Red Sox series does, a day-night doubleheader. And we know those are tough to sweep for either side. So those 4 with the Rays, something to keep an eye on. The Rays are 1 game away from clinching the season series. So the Yankees would have to sweep Tampa to... Clearly, if they do that, they're going to surmount the division, in my mind. but also then you clinch a season series for yourself if you sweep those 4 games. So that makes it even more massive. And I think the Yankees can do, 2 things by having a huge series against Tampa.
Final one. He had a rough weekend in the field, but yet I'm not the least bit concerned about George Lombard because he's continuing to hit. You can tell he shakes off an error pretty easily. That said, he had 3 of them this weekend. Is that something that you would circle, be mindful of, or is that a whole lot to do about nothing?
I think it's too early to be concerned. If we get to a 4th game or a 5th game, then it becomes more of a thing. But the way he shrugs them off and nothing seems to faze him, and he bounces back and makes a big play. What was it in the 5th inning with Blackburn? Makes a big play and a big throw, and helped out on the other end by Garcia. But I love the way he shrugs this stuff off, and it doesn't carry. The offense doesn't carry to the field. The field doesn't carry back to the dugout when he's going up to hit. He's maintained that same approach. It's beautiful watching him go to center, right center. It's such a different feel in this lineup where he's never looking to do too much. And if he looked like he was pressing, I would be concerned. But I'm actually not going to be concerned ever about this guy as long as he's making these acrobatic plays, because he's the type of guy we could look and at the end of the year, maybe he has 15 errors and there are balls that you think he should have made. But I think metrically, he's always going to grade out as one of the best defenders in the sport because the balls that he gets to that nobody else gets to and the type of arm that he has. So until this becomes a bigger thing, I'm not overreacting. I've just been so impressed by the guy.
Yeah, me too. Not worried about him playing shortstop. Going to be a fun couple of weeks for the Yankees. Never a dull moment for this guy. You hear him doing the pre and the post. He's doing the broadcast. He's doing yes. He did the Yankee pregame stuff today. Emmanuel Berbari. Now, where's dinner? That's what I'm dying to know.
Oh, really good. TBD. I'm going to go back.
You dressed up. I feel like you should go make a Sunday night of it.
You know what? I probably should. You're inspiring me right now. And I'm going back to the island right now, going back to Long Island to see some family and friends. So TBD on the dinner, but we got to pick a spot once I get off here.
I like the sound of that. Emmanuel Berbari, thanks for a few minutes, buddy. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.